What's up YouTube, Mike here from Techno GI, and today I finally wanted to do my review of the Surface 3. And again, this is the 64 gigabyte 2 gigs RAM variant. And you're probably asking, so why would you get the 2 gigabyte model? Why not spend the extra $100 to get the 4 gigs, double your storage essentially? Well, there's a few reasons. First off is I was really curious how this would perform with only 2 gigs of RAM, and I kind of wanted to test it, because that brings me, to my second reason: cost. For a lot of folks out there, $100 is kind of a big deal. So, it might be the difference between getting the type cover or not. And so, again, I just kind of wanted to test the limits to see how this would perform with only 2 gigs of RAM. And again, this does have expandable storage, and when you buy this, you get 1 terabyte of OneDrive for your online storage. So storage is not so much an issue, and it's the RAM that's obviously the concern for most folks. And I did a video, I'll post it in the description below. You can see kind of the multitasking test I did with this tablet, and I gotta say I was impressed, and I'm still impressed with this. And finally, the third reason why I went with the 2 gigabyte model was, to be honest with you, where I bought it at, the PX, they didn't have any 4 gigs in stock yet. So and personally, I am going to return this one and get the 4 gig model. But in the meantime, I really wanted to test out the 2 gigabyte model just to see how it performs, and if it's worth buying or not. So with that, let's take a closer look at this thing. So let's take a closer look at the hardware of this thing. And I kind of showed you this during my unboxing, but we'll take a look at it again. The size of this thing, it's about 10.5 by 7.5 inches and about 0.34 inches as far as in depth. It's a little bit thicker than an iPad Air 2, but not by a whole lot, to be honest with you. The weight of this thing, it's only about 1.37 pounds is the exact, but it's next to nothing. this thing is extremely light. It's got that same magnesium build. The build quality on this thing is excellent. That's all I can say is it is excellent. And of course, it's got the, again, one of the pretty features. I like this logo. One thing I wish Microsoft would do or include is multiple colors of the Surface itself. We all know they've got multiple colors for the accessories now. Whether you get the Surface Pen or the keyboard, you can get it in lots of colors. It would be kind of cool if they made this to match, i.e. if you could get one of these in red or black. I think if they had a dark black one of these, it would look pretty freaking sweet. Kind of like the OG MacBooks back in the day. But anyway, going around the horn, of course, on the back side here, you've got a 8 megapixel camera, which is actually pretty darn good. I'm going to throw some video in side by side, some of the pictures I shot with this. I went outside, I took some video and pictures with this, so the lighting was pretty good. It was outside natural light, so this is surprisingly good for a tablet camera. I'll probably never use it again, but it's there if you want it, and it's a pretty darn good camera. But on the top here, of course, this is where your antennas would go, whether Wi-Fi or if you get the LTE variants when they come out. But you got your volume rockers on the top, and then you got your power button. Going around the other side here, you've got your mini display port, which I've already demonstrated. It works well. You've got a USB 3.0 port, and then you've got the charging port, which is a micro USB but doubles as a data port. So essentially you've got 2 ports that you can use here for data, which is pretty darn sweet. And again, you've got the 3-position kickstand. So I get this open. You got your first position, your second, third. And I found that lappability, as they like to coin the phrase, is not an issue with this. The middle angle seems to be just about right for me. I use it in this position 90% of the time. No issue. It'd be nice if they included the kickstand from the Surface 3, or I say Surface Pro 3, where you got pretty much any range of motion you want, but I understand they did that to cut down on the cost. But underneath the kickstand, you've got your expandable storage. So you can put a micro SD card in here up to 128 gigabytes of storage. And that's why the storage of this is not really an issue, to be honest with you. It's the RAM, obviously, if you can afford it, it's well worth getting it. But if you can't afford it, then this is still a good device. It's not necessarily going to handicap you much. While using this, I've noticed very little lag, to be honest with you. Anything to make it stutter. So going around to the other side, there's nothing. It's just clean. And then on the bottom, of course, you got where you would put the optional type cover, which is really not optional. But there it is. So again, this thing's only about a pound. And as far as the display on this thing is gorgeous. I mean, I've got no complaints whatsoever. I mean, the display really looks good. It's a 10.8-inch display. They call it clear type, full HD plus. The resolution is 1920 by 1280. It's got a 3:2 aspect ratio, and of course it's 10-point multi-touch, and of course you can use the Surface Pen input. But the screen on this is awesome. I mean, I watch a lot of HD YouTube videos on this, and no issue. It looks great. As you can see, the camera I'm using to film this is probably not doing it justice, but the display is awesome. And you see the touch input's pretty responsive. Not really any lag. I mean, it does what it's supposed to, works as advertised. Now the battery life on this thing, we'll talk about that. They advertise 10 hours of battery life, but realistically and honestly, what I've been using this for about a week now is my only device. It's really closer to about 7 to 8 hours, depending on what you're doing. I've been using it pretty heavy lately, and so 7 hours is more of a reasonable number. Sure, if you turn the brightness down, you can get more out of it, but really a more realistic number as opposed to 10 is about 7 to 8. So just kind of take that in consideration, but it's still pretty darn good battery life for what it is. I mean, this is really a tablet that works as a full PC, so if you get 8 hours out of this, that's still pretty good. Now, as far as the storage, like I said, there's two configurations for this. You've got your 64 gigabytes with 2 gigabytes of RAM, which this is, and then for $100 more, so for $499 you get this model, and for $100 more, that gets you the 128 gigabytes of RAM, and that's $599. So, and of course, with that cost, it's going to be the pen if you so desire, which is $50, and the optional type cover, which totally a necessity, totally worth it. That'll set you back another $129. But speaking of that, as far as this type cover, a lot of people complain about the mouse pad on this thing, but I actually like it. It is small, but it doesn't take much at all to get used to it. Remember, this is also a backlit keyboard, and typing on this thing really is a joy. I mean, I have no issues typing with it whatsoever. I kind of prefer it. And, you know, of course, with this pen, you get your magical, you click it, and it should take you to OneDrive. Or, I'm sorry, OneNote. So there, and bam. It works like a champ. Highly recommend it. Never had any issues with the pen, or the writing experience on this is pretty darn good. No complaints there. And also, don't forget with this tablet, when you buy it, of course the software, it's got Windows 8.1, but this includes Office 365 for a year. So it basically will give you all your Word, Excel, PowerPoint programs, your Microsoft Office. And of course, when you buy this, you get the 1 terabyte of OneDrive cloud storage, which kind of helps with having the small storage on this. But again, like I mentioned, this is expandable via micro SD card. And also this summer, we'll get the free upgrade to Windows 10, which really should be a game changer. Hopefully Microsoft makes it so and doesn't screw that up. But of course, Windows 10 is supposed to allow developers to port over their iOS and Android apps pretty easy. So hopefully that'll cause the Windows Store to just explode, is what I'm hoping. Like I said, I already mentioned the camera. It's got a 3.5 megapixel in the front, 8 megapixel in the rear. And throughout this review, you'll see on the side that I've shown some pictures and videos with this camera. And it's pretty darn good for a tablet. I got to say, it's actually a really good camera. But again, whether I ever use it or whether you'll ever use it is to be seen. But it's there if you need it, and it is a good camera. So let me take this off so you can see better. But no complaints whatsoever with that. And of course, it's got your standard sensors. your ambient light sensor. That's how, you know, when you put it on auto brightness, it'll adjust for you. Your accelerometer, gyroscope. The one bummer though is this doesn't have GPS, so I am kind of disappointed in that. I wish it did have integrated GPS, but again, when the LTE model does, that'll of course have GPS. So that's kind of a bummer. But other than that, as long as you realize the constraints of this, because this is run the Atom processor, if you're not a big multitasker, like I said, the 2 gigs of RAM is not an issue unless you're trying to do a ton of things at once, because really all that RAM is going to help you with is your multitasking. But 2 gigs, like I said, check out my video in the description where I kind of showcased the multitasking features of this. It's pretty darn good. I mean, no complaints whatsoever. And again, as long as you're not doing hardcore programs, this processor is more than adequate. I mean, you'll run Office without any issues whatsoever. It'll run your Metro apps. And like I said, you can do light gaming. And, you know, you can put Photoshop on this and it'll run it. But obviously it's not going to be, you know, awesome. And again, this is not a gaming PC. So don't buy this thinking it's going to be a gaming PC, because you'll simply be disappointed. It'll run games. You have to turn the settings all the way down, but it's not a gaming powerhouse. Like I said, I mean, you can install Steam, but as long as you're just playing the Metro games, no issue. So, I mean, really, if you look at the cost comparison of this to an iPad, I mean, there's just really no comparison, to be honest with you. You know, the 64 gigabyte iPad Air 2 cost you $599. And for $599, you can get the 128 4 gigs of RAM model of this, and just what you can do is just so much better. I mean, if all you want is a tablet and you're looking just for a media consumption device, then hey, go with the iPad. But if you want something that'll do more, then definitely this is worth checking out. I mean, it's got your 10 hours, basically 8 to 10 hours battery life, like I already talked about. But I mean, with the ports, you can just do so much more, because this is a tablet, but you know, you add the type cover or even any Bluetooth keyboard, and this is a full PC. So, I mean, just what this can do compared to an iPad is just, I mean, leaps and bounds ahead of it. I mean, there's really no tablet in this class that can do what this can do, with the exception, obviously, of the Surface Pro 3, which is awesome. But this is just a smaller form factor. It's fanless, it's cheaper. So if you don't have the money for the Pro and you don't really need to do hardcore stuff, then this is a great option for you. So I think if you get this, you will not be disappointed. I mean, great device, beautiful display. I mean, it's just a joy to watch YouTube videos on this, especially you can go HD 1080p. Let's see, again, Digital Digest, check it out. It's not mine, but great video. But he's got some HD stuff. Let's see if I can pull up. And it's going to be limited by my internet connection, but as you can see, this goes all the way up to 4K. It's not a 4K display, but it will play it. So I don't listen to this ad here. Let me turn this down. And again, speakers on this is good. The sound's really good. I'll turn this up so you can see. I mean, you're not going to be disappointed. And right now, this is on 4K setting. And again, you know, of course, the camera I'm using is not going to do it justice. But I'll turn it up so you can kind of hear the sound. And the sound is good. On the right. So, I mean, it's minimal stuttering. Right now it's based on my internet connection. But this will play 4K video just fine, even though it's not a 4K display. But, I mean, you can change the settings up, of course, to just 1080p. But it'll do it right now. Sadly, it's just lagging because of the my internet connection, because I'm sharing it with all my neighbors, essentially. But, I mean, and really, I'm not even anywhere close to my router. It's in a completely different room right now. It's playing, but no issues whatsoever. Like I said, this is the top tablet in its class. It really is. Even though you get the 2 gig model or the 4 gigs, and again, like I said, you only need the 4 gigs if you're doing a lot of hardcore multitasking. Other than that, it's not going to make your device any faster, so you're not going to notice any difference. I mean, you still got the same processor. So really, this is a win in my book. I mean, it's a home run. It's a beautiful device, fanless. It gets a little warm, but barely noticeable. And like I said, I mean, this has got that Bay Trail processor. but it's good. It's great. It's adequate for what it is. I mean, it'll 1.6 gigahertz and it'll burst up to 2.4 gigahertz when you're doing heavy tasks. So, like I said, this is multitasking on this is quick, easy, as you can see. I mean, you can just swap between apps. I mean, it's money. So with that, I mean, if you have any questions, leave it in the comments below. And as always, give me a thumbs up, please. I appreciate it. And go ahead and subscribe. And thanks for watching.